Rachel Zegler didn't merely enter Hollywood. She stormed in like a hurricane draped in gold. When she secured the role of Maria in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, people called it fate, a young, unknown talent plucked from obscurity to lead in a revival directed by one of the greatest filmmakers alive. It was the kind of narrative Hollywood loves to spin, but beneath the glamour and camera flashes, trouble was brewing.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphor?
A side of Zegler the public didn't see until it was too late. What began as a fairy tale ascent quickly spiraled into a behind-the-scenes nightmare. Allegations emerged, murmurs from film sets grew louder, and soon Zegler wasn't being celebrated. She was being cautioned about. Directors who once backed her were now allegedly placing her name on the never again list. It wasn't just a career stumble.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
It was a reputation collapsing in real time. She allegedly crossed Steven Spielberg. She allegedly enraged Francis Lawrence. And by the time Snow White came around, Disney executives were reportedly in full-blown crisis mode. The media might still try to soften the impact, but insiders, they've had enough.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of like, I don't know, vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Zegler's name went from being a rising star to a Hollywood warning tale in record time. And the most brutal part? The people she allegedly disrespected weren't just industry peers. They were giants, icons. Spielberg, the godfather of modern cinema. Lawrence, the genius behind the dystopian world of the Hunger Games. This wasn't just bad PR, this was self-destruction on an epic scale. And Hollywood, as we know, doesn't forgive. Steven Spielberg is not a man easily shaken.
Hardcore. They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
He's directed some of the most challenging actors on the planet and led productions that reshaped the very essence of cinema. So when reports started leaking that he was disappointed in Rachel Zegler during West Side Story, Hollywood paid attention. That word disappointed hits different when it comes from Spielberg, because if he's disappointed, it's more than a bad day on set.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
It's a warning sign. Insiders claim Zegler clashed with Spielberg's vision almost immediately. While she had undeniable talent, she allegedly insisted on making creative choices without consulting the director. At first, Spielberg tried to guide her and give her room to grow, but that goodwill reportedly faded fast. Behind the scenes, whispers say she acted like she was the one leading the show, not the man who literally transformed the film industry. Crew members were allegedly caught in the crossfire, reporting tension, retakes, and awkward silences that lingered like fog.
Last week was a very big week, objectively a huge week. We had quite a few announcements as a first live-action film, which is Snow White and the Evil Queen. And that's me, I'm Snow White, which is so funny.
Some say Spielberg tried to push through it for the sake of the film, but the moment press tours began and Zegler started making bold, borderline arrogant comments about how she reimagined Maria, Spielberg's distance became noticeable. He didn't go out of his way to publicly praise her. He didn't invite her into the inner circle. And in the months following the film's release,
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
His name stopped appearing anywhere near hers. Even more damning, he reportedly made it clear, quietly but unmistakably, that he wouldn't work with her again. And in Hollywood, when Spielberg closes a door, other doors slam shut in response. It was a silent exile.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
The kind you don't notice until it's already done. If Spielberg was the first bridge Rachel Zegler allegedly burned, Francis Lawrence might have been the next victim. When Zegler was cast in The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds, and Snakes, it was pitched as her redemption arc, a chance to prove she could handle a major franchise. But instead of redemption, it became a masterclass in how to alienate an entire team.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
Sources tied to the production say Zegler arrived on set with an inflated ego. She had something to prove, but instead of channeling that into her performance, she allegedly brought chaos. There were reports of her arriving hours late, arguing, overlines in the middle of rehearsals, and demanding script changes. One crew member allegedly said,
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
It felt like she thought she was the director. And when you're dealing with a franchise as tightly controlled as The Hunger Games, that kind of behavior isn't just irritating, it's a liability. Director Francis Lawrence, who had successfully guided stars like Jennifer Lawrence through the pressure cooker of a blockbuster series, was reportedly stunned by Zegler's attitude.
She came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far. But it wasn't.
He's known for his calm demeanor and professionalism, but insiders claim even he hit a breaking point. Behind the scenes, there were emergency meetings, schedule reshuffles, and crew members reportedly requesting reassignment. Some insiders even alleged that portions of the film had to be reworked entirely to reduce Zegler's screen time in certain scenes. And when press junkets rolled around,
broke out with this news, and I'm very, very, very excited and looking forward.
Zegler wasn't the face of the campaign. The focus shifted. Tom Blyth took center stage, Francis Lawrence leaned into the franchise's legacy, and Zegler. She was barely visible, not because of scheduling conflicts, but because the studio allegedly didn't trust her to handle the spotlight without sparking another media firestorm. From diva antics to behind-the-scenes tension,
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Zegler's time in Panem wasn't a career milestone. It was a warning signal. And the message was clear. She wasn't the team player the studio needed. She was a storm they barely survived. When the backlash hit Rachel Zegler, it didn't just come from random Twitter accounts or YouTube commenters. It came from inside the industry, from the very people who matter most in Hollywood.
Doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million, and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
Executives, producers, veteran actors, and even celebrity royalty. One of the sharpest jabs came from Sean Ono Lennon, who flat out called her a spoiled, ungrateful brat. Not behind closed doors, not in a leaked DM, but publicly. And that wasn't just a hot take, it was a temperature.
Nobody
Who
wants
wants
that.
a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? It'd be outrage.
Check for the entire industry. Sean's comment opened the floodgates, because suddenly others started echoing the sentiment. Agents quietly dropped her name from their lips in meetings, PR firms began backing away, and even red carpet stylists, who live for exposure, allegedly refused to work with her. Why? Because Zegler had become toxic.
Pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
Not controversial in a cool, click-worthy way, but in a brands don't want to touch this kind of way. And then there was Disney. The House of Mouse had a full-blown crisis on their hands. This was Snow White, one of their crown jewels, a reimagining they had sunk millions into. Yet the marketing campaign for the film began shrinking faster than Zegler's approval ratings. Her media appearances were suddenly limited, and her press interviews were closely vetted. Some were canceled last minute without explanation. Insiders claimed Disney executives were in panic mode after a series of clips went viral. Zegler mocking the original Snow White, dismissing Prince Charming, and doubling down in interviews with a smugness that made even her fans cringe. She didn't just criticize the 1937 version, she ridiculed it. And in doing so, she ridiculed Disney's own legacy. That's when the studio allegedly stepped in. Things got so tense, Disney reportedly assigned additional security detail to Gal Gadot during promotional events. Not because of Gadot's own actions, but because of the fury Zegler had stirred up online. Comments flooded in, threats escalated, and the optics became too risky to ignore. There were even whispers that Disney held internal discussions about cutting their losses and minimizing Zegler's role in future merchandising. The unspoken truth. Zegler was no longer an asset, she was a liability. And in an industry that moves fast and cuts faster, being labeled difficult or disruptive is a death sentence, especially when the one doing the labeling is the same company that owns Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and most of modern entertainment. And what came next? Even more devastating. When Snow White finally limped into theaters, it didn't arrive like a fairy tale. It hit like a cautionary tale. Critics tore into it, fans mocked it, and the box office numbers told the story better than any review ever could. The film flopped, not just by Disney standards, but by industry standards. It became the poster child for what happens when a studio gambles on the wrong face for the franchise. Many pointed fingers at the marketing, others blamed the script or the visual effects. But let's be real. Most of the blame landed squarely on Rachel Zegler. And not because of her acting, but because of her mouth. Her interviews had poisoned the well before a single ticket was sold. Her attitude had alienated the very audience Disney was counting on. Parents didn't want to take their kids. Long time. Disney fans boycotted the film, and even neutral moviegoers stayed away just to avoid the drama. But the question remains, can she recover from this, or has the damage been done? Because in Hollywood, forgiveness is rare, and second chances, they don't go to the ones who burned bridges with Spielberg and then lit a match under Disney's biggest legacy. And coming up next, we're diving into the part that Rachel can't PR her way out of, the public's verdict. And trust me, it's not pretty. Social media platforms have been abuzz with discussions about Zegler's behavior. While some fans continue to support her, citing her talent and potential, others express disappointment and frustration over her actions. The divide is stark, with debates often turning heated. This polarization affects not only Zegler's fanbase, but also her marketability. Brands and studios may hesitate to associate with a figure who elicits such mixed reactions, further complicating her career trajectory. Rachel Zegler's rise in Hollywood was meteoric, but her journey has been fraught with challenges, many of her own making. Allegations of unprofessional behavior toward respected directors and controversial public statements have tarnished her image. As she attempts to navigate the aftermath and rebuild her career, only time will tell if she can regain the trust of both the industry and audiences. The path ahead is uncertain, and Zegler's future in Hollywood hangs